We are back, remembering Dynasty, bums, and a whole hell of a lot more with Peter Golenbock. Good evening, Peter.
How are you, sir?
I'm Ralph Tyko, as you know, but maybe some of our audience doesn't. I'm kind of the George Fenneman to the Groucho, as they say. But anyway, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. And it's July 4th.
Of course,
weekend.
you realize your listeners have no idea what you're talking about, but that's okay.
Oh, they do. They absolutely. You have no idea.
Think so?
Absolutely.
How erudite your listeners are? Very good.
I know for a fact that they are because I know my demographics, and it came back yesterday. It said recently deceased.
Aha. Yes.
My demographic.
There you go.
But
very good.
Some of them are some of them are indeed, but before they go, they get some wonderful memories to relive from us. And I'll tell you what, it's cathartic and it's for posterity, and I'm loving it. So it's July 4th weekend, and I was thinking, I have several questions that I'd like to, over these weeks, that I would have liked to have elaborated on in our interviews.
Well, here's your
and
chance.
then I thought to myself, well, what are the most important ones? And here's the most important one. Okay. Was the Valvano book your first journalistic experience in your mind? Do you know what I'm saying? In other words,
no, I don't know what you're
rather than being just an author.
My first journalistic experience was writing for the Daily Dartmouth. Was my first journalistic experience.
Oh, okay.
Was writing, for the Dartmouth. No, by the time I wrote Dynasty, I had what I considered to be a tremendous amount of journalistic experience.
No, I meant difference between writing a book and journalism. Is there a difference? Is it a fine line? In other words, I'm going over on the internet the Valvano situation, and I looked at that as pure journalism on your part. Because
Dynasty was pure journalism too. I went and interviewed all the members of the Yankees. That was pure journalism, by all means.
Okay. Okay. Well, maybe I'm thinking investigative journalism. Maybe it's my.
You're thinking investigative journalism. Yeah, that's
okay. So was the Valvano book an inadvertent investigative experience? And
oh, hell no, it was not inadvertent at all. No, there was a fella who worked for Valvano by the name of John Simon, and he had been very badly mistreated by Valvano, and so he decided he was going to write a book. And so he wrote a letter to Simon & Schuster. And at the same time, I wanted to write a book about Lefty Driesell, who was the coach of the University of Maryland. And I wanted to write a book about Lefty because I was very curious about his great ball player who had been drafted by the Boston Celtics and who had dropped dead because of drugs.
Len Bias.
Len Bias. Exactly. Len Bias. And so I went to see Lefty, and Lefty was kind of wishy-washy about it. His wife really didn't want him to do it. But I went to Simon & Schuster to talk to them about, what sort of money that they would give me to do it, because I really thought it was a very, very interesting story. And I got there, and the editor says to me, I've got this other story. This kid wrote me a 20-page letter spelling out what some of the things that Jim Valvano did at North Carolina State. I want you to take a look at this and see if this would make an interesting book. And I read the thing, and it was jaw-dropping. The way this guy treated, especially the black athletes, was despicable. So I called Simons on the phone, and he had been staying and he had transferred schools. He had left North Carolina State, went to Florida State University in Tallahassee. So I got on a plane and I went to visit him down there. And we meet, and he's got to shake hands with me left-handed because his right shoulder has been dislocated. And I said to him, "What the hell happened to you?" And he wouldn't tell me. So we're sitting and talking about things in his letter, and I'm just astounded by what I'm finding out. And towards the end of the conversation, he says to me, "I'll tell you why my arm is in a sling." And that is, one of the assistant coaches found out that I was thinking of writing this book, and he cornered me in a telephone booth, and he dislocated my shoulder deliberately and told me if I wrote this book that bad things were going to happen to me. Now, this is college. This is college. And I'm saying to myself, I'm thinking to myself, I'm doing this book. I don't care. I don't care. I'm doing this book. I mean, for them to dislocate this kid's shoulder, for what? Well, turned out, obviously, it was, they shouldn't have done that.
No, obviously.
Go ahead.
But what it was that preceded it to make it come to the point? They shouldn't have done those things either.
Well, what preceded it, I mean, it's fairly clear to me that college sports, especially basketball and football, is so mired in corruption and sleaze that you absolutely would not believe it. But see, they're very, very good at masking what they're doing. I mean, a large part of it is secretive. And what made Personal Fouls the national bestseller that it became was that it revealed for the first time some of these secrets. How these coaches managed to get players who can, some of them, not even read or write, and keep them eligible for 2 or 3 years. And also when they do bad things like, steal and rob and rape and so forth and so on, how they manage to keep the evidence of all of this, down so that nobody finds out about it in order to keep these people eligible. And that's really what the book was all about. It was, to me, astounding.
Well,
absolutely astounding.
The thing, of all the things you told me just right now, the thing that really astounds me is that Valvano was a racist.
Hey, they're all racist. Come on, they're all racist.
No.
What you find out.
His player. No, okay. That notwithstanding, there's a certain amount of racism on both sides. This, that, and the other thing. He was horribly abusive to blacks.
He was. He was incredibly abusive to black players. No, that's true. Okay. And yet he would never. It would not occur to him if you called him on it. He would go, come on, that sort of thing. It would not be something that he would, he would think was so terrible. Obviously.
Well, why I guess why that shocks me is because I have this Pollyannish attitude that sports brings the races together, that teammates, this, that, and the other thing, the old Pee Wee Jackie.
And certainly in certain places it does that. Unfortunately, with Valvano, he would do things like promise 3 black point guards if they all came to NC State. He would make sure they all got into the pros. He would make them all famous. That sort of promises, which sort of everybody.
3 guys at the same time, and there's only one.
Well, that's the problem. That's the
Yeah.
problem. You bring in 3 guys to be the point guard, and obviously only one of them can, and the other 2 guys are so incredibly disappointed that you can't believe it. See, and the other thing happens.
They use.
Oh shit! Their lives are shot. Their lives are shot. I mean, 4 or 5 players from that team. I mean, the reason I was as successful as I was is that 4 or 5 players from that team left NC State and went somewhere else. And so I was able to go and interview them.
Right. And if I recall, they didn't. Did they not testify, or you couldn't use their names?
All of them were convinced. All of them were convinced, and this is part of what it is with young athletes. They're all convinced that they deserve to be pros. Okay, and they were also convinced that if Valvano found out that somehow they were cooperating with me, that he would blackball them.
Even though they had already transferred.
Yeah, well, they weren't going to be pros anyway.
But had they already transferred when you were talking to them?
Yes, they were at other schools. They
still feared Valvano's wrath.
Well, because part of Valvano's shtick was he let them know that he had mafia connections, and he used that to frighten them. I mean, he did that on purpose. He used that sort of nonsense to frighten them, and he succeeded.
Wow.
Yeah. So
and
they were afraid of him. They were afraid of what?
And you yourself received death threats, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a bunch of nonsense.
Nothing that
by that time the horses were out of the barn. There wasn't anything anybody could do about it, except do their very best to cast me as some sort of lying, stupid son of a bitch. That kind of thing. But the book comes out, and 1 week after the book comes out, the president of the university retires, quote, retires. And right after that, Valvano was fired as athletic director, and he tried everything he could to keep his coaching job. And that didn't work out. So he left. And what did he do? He went to ESPN, and he became, truly the most famous basketball announcer on the planet.
Right.
Exactly what he did. And then what he did, son of a gun, what did he do? He went and died. And you see evidence of that. He became the face of college basketball. Never give in, never give up.
Right.
And at that point, it didn't matter that he had been the sleaziest basketball coach on the face of the earth. It didn't make any difference. He was
so it's almost like
ESPN
the overall benefit of everything, the inspiration that he gave. It's almost like OJ. His getting off changed the LA system of doing things. So, I don't know if the analogy makes any sense. But
I don't know either. I mean, OJ is a whole different kettle of fish. OJ,
I know, but what I'm saying is it was horrible that he got off, yet changes were made in his honor.
Definitely changes were made in the collegiate system. No two ways about that. I mean,
on both things. That's my analogy. Is that changes were made in the LA Police Department, in the judicial system, in the whole ball of wax, just as things were over that book. Now, that's what I meant by a journalist. You didn't, when you did Dynasty, you didn't bring out anything that was,
I brought out all sorts of things. It doesn't have. Journalism does not have to. Look. Journalism does not have to be outrageous. When you write a biography of John Adams, you don't have to be outrageous. You just have to do the work and find out, what the hell he was all about, and write a very interesting book about John Adams. Same way with Dynasty. I mean, it's what you do. Everything you do is journalism. It's not necessarily, revealing things that nobody knows. Every once in a while you get one of those.
But this was absolutely the Valvano thing was absolutely shocking.
It was shocking. It was shocking to me, and I wrote it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure reading this guy's 20-page letter and the serendipity of him writing the letter to Simon & Schuster and right?
Right. No, absolutely right. I mean, my life has been a series of that sort of thing. It really has. I mean, it's like being in the right place at the right time. It's just astounding.
When you went to law school,
hang on a second. What did Woody Allen say? That 90% of life is showing up.
Yeah.
True.
That's very true. Yes, but showing up in the right places.
Well, I mean, being lucky. I mean, I wrote Dynasty.
You can
Look,
say luck is the residue of hard work and design and the Branch Rickey thing. And if you weren't as modest as you are, and I know you to be modest, that'd be the case. Next question, then.
Yeah.
We've often talked and we've joked about when you write something, you don't have any regrets, this, that, and the other thing. You write a book, you take it, you put it in there, you didn't put it in there, fine, you take it as it is, boom. Do you work with an editor? Do you have to negotiate these things with an editor, or do they allow you to be your own editor? Curious about that.
I've worked with some wonderful editors, terrific editors. When I wrote the Forever Boys, for instance, I had written it more as an oral history, and my editor, his name was Black. He said to me, "This would be much better in the third person," and he was absolutely right. And he improved the book, by leaps and bounds.
Have you ever had editors come to you and you're in disagreement with their recommendations, and it comes down to negotiations?
Well, I had one situation where I was doing my book Fenway. I think the guy just hated me. I don't know what it was. He just didn't like me at all. Fenway was an oral history of the Boston Red Sox, and he said, "This is no good. This will not do. You've got to do it a different way." And so I said, okay, and I left Simon & Schuster, and I took it to, I think, St. Martin's, and they paid me the same money, and I wrote the book the way I wanted to write it.
We did it a different way. It has a different label on it.
Well, this
same
happened.
book, my book.
Well,
good.
I mean, every once in a while you get the feeling every once in a while with some editor is that, he's got it in for you, or he doesn't know what he's doing, one or the other. And at that point, I had enough experience to know the difference between somebody who knew what he was doing and somebody who was full of, crap.
Right. Nice. Okay, brings us to 4th of July, and I want you to talk about, if you would, a real American hero, and who better to talk about, and that's Jerry Coleman. And
nobody knows who Jerry Coleman is. Come on, give me a break. These people don't know who Jerry Coleman is.
This is Jerry.
I'm telling you.
You are
nobody
Dynasty.
Knows Jerry
you
Coleman.
are Golenbock, young man.
I know Jerry Coleman, but your readers don't know. Your listeners don't know Jerry Coleman.
That's why they don't know Jerry. He, like George Weiss, is one of those people. I want to know more about Jerry Coleman, and believe me, the listeners do too, and I want your remembrance.
All right. If your listeners are from San Diego, they'll appreciate this. If they're not from San Diego, they probably
who can
won't.
Remember number 42 making a slick double turn of the double play, and who really were it not for his wartime exploits going back into the service for Korea.
Yeah.
We probably wouldn't have known much about Billy Martin, because I don't think he had the arm to play other infield positions, and I think Jerry Coleman was slick as they come at second base. So you talk about serendipity. He was
slick as they come. He was the second baseman when Billy showed up in 1950. Jerry Coleman.
Right.
And Billy spent the entire 1950 season telling Casey Stengel, who had been his manager in Oakland, "I'm better than he is. That bum can't play. Get him out of there." He spent the entire year telling him that. and Jerry was pretty good. Jerry was a pretty darn good player. That's for sure. And he had been in the Korean War. That's also true. But also, in the end, it is also true that Billy Martin ended up with the job. And Jerry ended up, quite frankly, where he ended up was as an announcer in San Diego, where he was beloved by many.
That's the word, because he was beloved. Now,
he was beloved. He was a very sweet guy.
On this day in sports history is Lenny Dykstra.
Oh, Christ.
And
all right.
What's going on?
Yes. What?
Lenny
no.
I want to know. You wrote a book that's absolutely incredible. All of a sudden, I'm reading on the thing. You wrote the book, which is cool.
I did.
And you and he had a disagreement. What was
No, we didn't have a disagreement. We did not have a disagreement. He cheated me out of my my credit and my money. That's as simple as that. We didn't have a disagreement. We had a contract that allowed him. Go ahead.
No, he had the manuscripts. Is that it?
No, we had a contract that said he could fire me for any reason at any time. And that was a contract that I signed when I started with him. And I said to the agent, I said, what is this? And she said, don't worry about it. And, the thing was 98% finished. And at a certain point, I had interviewed one of his teammates in Philadelphia and sent him what I wrote. And he called me up complaining, this isn't the sort of thing that he would say. And he fired me, which enabled him to keep his money, keep all the money, and enabled him to, not give me any credit. So there you go.
But who had the manuscript? He just took the manuscripts and
of course he had the manuscripts. Sure, yes, exactly what he did. Yeah, which under the contract he was able to do, and he did. Simple.
Okay. So it was just a bad deal for you with the agent? Is it
bad deal for the contract was with Lenny. As they say, he won, I lost. That's about what it comes down to. People want to know, how come you're not angry? I'm not angry because I knew exactly what it was I was getting into, and I was stupid enough to get into it in the first place. Obviously shouldn't have done it. Because I spent, 7-8 months of my life writing the goddamn thing, knowing that there was a clause in that contract that would have enabled him to fire me at any time. And when he, went about and said, "You're fired," what was I going to say? I didn't know you were going to do this. I knew exactly that he was going to do this, and he did it. So, shame on me, as they say.
Okay. When you say you knew exactly, were you having words? Were there disagreements along the way?
No. This thing sort of came out of the blue. All he needed was some sort of excuse to say, that you're fired. I mean, under the contract, he could fire me for pretty much whatever he wanted to. And I was screwed. That's just the way the contract was. It was his contract. He's got lawyers who were smarter than I. I could have not agreed to it, but I agreed to it. I agreed to it because it was something that was going to be a hell of a lot of fun to do, and it was. It was a hell of a lot of fun to do. It was tremendous.
I can imagine.
Oh, it was a hoot and a half. Yeah.
Now, you had already written a book about the Mets back in the day.
Well, the funny thing was, I had spent the 1985 season with the Mets, which was Lenny's rookie year, and so I was, intimately knowledgeable about, Lenny's role in all this. I thought the kid was tremendous, just tremendous. Also Lenny had been in jail. I sort of felt sorry for him. Very entertaining guy. We had wonderful, wonderful conversations. His stories are unbelievable. Going to Paris and buying a dog for $25,000. I mean, who does that? Who does a thing like that? He was a hoot.
He had some hillbilly doctor with the steroids and this, that, and the other.
It wasn't no hillbilly doctor. This was no hillbilly doctor. This was a doctor in Mississippi who, he said to him, I need to be stronger.
I'm quoting something I read that I think those were his words that he went.
Yeah, maybe so. Only hillbilly because he has, this thing about the South. That anywhere that isn't Beverly Hills is hillbilly country. You got to understand that.
Right.
With Lenny, you're either in Beverly Hills or you're in the in the sticks.
Right.
So he was married to this woman who was from Mississippi. And he went to this doctor and said, "Look, I'm playing for the first time with the Phillies all year round, and last year I hit 140 the last 2 months of the season. I need to be stronger. What can you do to make me stronger?" Smart guy. His career would have been over had he not done it. And they gave him Durabobolin, whatever that thing's called, and he took it, made himself really, really strong, and proceeded to have unbelievable seasons. The guy was one great ball player.
Great years, absolutely.
Great years. And when these lay people talk about, they never should take steroids, it's like, well, as Lenny would say, you can either not take the steroids and go and work driving a truck, or you can take the steroids and make $1 million a year. Your choice.
Yeah, and that's a good. But the way he put it, he didn't quite put it that way. He said, I could go out and work for some bozo or make $1 million a year. Now, there's a clear difference there. In other words,
you don't understand. You don't understand. To Lenny,
can somebody work a good, honest job and say, I'm not working for a bozo, I'm doing a good job, it's okay to work? Or if that's the choice, and, sure, it's much easier to be a millionaire, I'll take this choice. But to say, it says, how about the people that are out there, his fans, the people buying the books? What is he saying about the working person? I got to tell you, he's an asshole.
Understand something. Lenny Dykstra is Donald Trump. I mean, we had long conversations about how wonderful Donald Trump was to Lenny. And really? He operates his life under the exact same premise of it, which is to say that if you can, rob somebody blind, that's your fault. When he talks about working for some bozo, he's the sort of fella, everybody else in this world is stupider than he is. Everybody. Everybody else is a bozo. That's just who he is.
Right. Now,
so Bozo was the
jail.
Bozo.
Did that mellow him at all? Did the experience hit him just a little bit when they hit the gates or whatever they do,
No, because it was somebody else's fault. It was somebody else's fault that he was there, not his fault, not his doing. He was innocent. He didn't do it. They put him there. It was a conspiracy, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. There was somebody wrote a book, The Bad Guys Won. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, no, right. Something like that. It was about
the 86 Mets, about those 86 Mets and holy Toledo. Yet you can't say anything bad about Mookie, who Dykstra platooned with the Mets. And,
well, the only thing he said about Mookie was that he had bad breath.
Okay.
He liked Mookie. He liked Mookie just fine, except Mookie had apparently bad breath.
All right. That's...
Yes.
What do you say in a book? What do you say?
Yes.
How does somebody that hasn't ever read a biography, talk about a biography, interview for a biography? It's that's something you might expect. Great Met teams. Any memories of writing that book that you'd like to share?
Well, the thing about Lenny is he had a most incredible life. I mean, the ups and downs of this guy's life. At a certain point, he had an estate worth about $50 million at a certain point. And he went from there. He went from there to jail. I mean, and I'm not sure. I'm really not sure.
Did he keep some of the money? Does he still live a high lifestyle?
No, not a penny.
Oh.
Not a penny. No.
So
and
sometimes he may have to work for a bozo. He may have to work for a bozo.
He never will. He will never work for a bozo. Never. He will never do that. He will figure something out. He'll get somebody to finance whatever it is he wants to do, and or he'll just continue to be poor, one or the other.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen to him. He seems less. He seems less integrated, if you know what I mean, than he was. He seems at wit's end right now. He's been saying and doing some very strange things.
Okay. Do you interview hundreds and hundreds of people? Do you ever have like a premonition where, man, this guy's going downhill and he's covering it up? And are you ever like the first to know in your mind where you see things that shock you? Just in general, no names or anything. Because people have a way of opening up to you that's incredible. You hear things where you go, ooh, it kind of shakes you.
Well, I mean, look, I did a book with Billy Martin. And Billy said some, fairly incredible things in that book. Most of them were about George Steinbrenner. And,
right.
And when you do a book with somebody like that, it's his book. If this is what he wants to say, for the most part, have at it. And some of the things he said in that book were fairly shocking. Some of the things that Lenny says in this book are shocking. Who else said shocking things? Oh, and you were talking about personal fouls.
Shocking, but shocking where you see them coming apart, where you see they're writing a book or they're giving you an interview and they're trying to maintain a persona, or it's got to be tough knowing sometimes. That's
I can't even respond to what you're saying. I don't.
Okay. All right.
I'm not.
No problem.
It's not ringing a bell with me.
Well, I'm going to try to rephrase that question the next time or down the road, and I'm going to try to get it out. I do the best I can. You gave me a wonderful 30 minutes as usual, my friend. I'm thrilled to talk to you. Believe me, there are an awful lot of people that want to hear what you have to say. They're out there.
Well, that's very sweet of you.
I just want
very
you to know.
Nice.
And
I
with that in mind, there are people that want to know that you and I don't just always talk sports and don't agree about everything. And that
they don't want to know that. They don't want to know that at all. They have no interest in politics whatsoever. None.
Okay.
No interest in politics.
All right, let's just I do, and you do, and at least we have opinions. There's, I was going to name the show Two Jews, Three Opinions, but I thought...
There you go. Well, I'm really thinking that Donald Trump ought to name Lenny as his vice president. He would be absolutely perfect for the job.
Yeah.
He'd be
sadly...
sensational. Well, the two of them, they're two peas in a pod. They both believe in the same thing, which is to say that if I can open a university and you're stupid enough to enroll in my university, that's your fault.
Right.
There you go. That's the same deal. Exact same deal. If you're stupid enough to sign a contract with me, that's your fault. And it would be.
But it wasn't like you didn't see it coming. So you didn't feel...
No, I did see it coming. I saw it coming right from the beginning. No, you misunderstand. I absolutely saw it coming. I said to the agent from the very first moment, I said, "What is this?" And she goes, "Don't worry about it." I said, "Okay." So I knew right from the beginning that this was a possibility, and when it happened, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't.
I don't want the woman's name. I don't want the woman's name. You wouldn't.
No, I'm not going to give you the woman's name. But the point is,
okay,
you know.
But you wouldn't consider her to be a top flight agent, and I would think because of your past success, and don't give me any modesty stuff, that you wouldn't have any trouble finding the best agent in the United States of America.
Well, this was somebody who called me. You know, they called me and said, "Hey, how would you like to write a book with Lenny?" I said, "Great, I'd love to." I mean, it's as simple as that. I did. I wanted to.
Oh, okay. You didn't go.
For instance, I'll tell you the story that I love to tell is that I got a call one day. How'd you like to write a book with Paul Hornung? And I said, "Boy, that sounds fabulous." So I go to Louisville and I spend a day and a half with Paul Hornung. And Paul Hornung is sitting at home in his living room, and he's got this channel which is devoted entirely to horse racing. Horse racing. And he sits there and makes bets. So I write this proposal. This, I swear to you, was going to be one of the great books. Absolutely great books. Hornung had a story to tell that was just fabulous. We got $375,000 for this proposal. Okay? That's how fabulous it was. Hornung comes to New York, and he says to my agent, "I will give your guy $20,000, no royalties, take it or leave it." And what my agent should have said, of course, was, you know, go screw yourself. But he didn't. He says to me, "What do you want to do?" I mean, what do you mean what do I want to do? I'm not, you know, are you kidding me? So I left it. So Hornung got his $375,000, got his next-door neighbor to write it for $20,000, kept all the money, and the book was terrible. Because Hornung didn't care. Hornung didn't care whether the book was any good. What he wanted was his money. And he got it. It happens. I mean, in this business, you want to do books with people like Billy Martin because that's exciting and fun.
Right. And for those
so Dykstra was exciting.
Had Paul Hornung and Alex Karras were both suspended early on.
That was part of that was part of the story. It was going to be
incredibly, and people said, "Well, you just got a year's suspension, and they're going to be okay now." No, they went on gambling.
Well, of course they did, but I mean, nothing terrible, terrible. But you know, Hornung was telling me about Bobby Lane. There's this fabulous story he was telling me about Bobby Lane, who was this great quarterback for Pittsburgh and Detroit, and Detroit was playing the college all-stars, and Bobby Lane who was playing for Detroit, bet all his money on the college all-stars. It's hilarious. He threw the game. Bobby Lane threw the game, for crying out loud. I mean, it's just, these stories are so fabulous. And unfortunately,
I could almost remember that game, and I think it was the quarterback that the Giants drafted from Utah. I can't. Name escapes me.
Yeah.
The announcer out doing Cal, but so I could almost remember that game. My last question to you: did you read when we were kids, much younger? You and I were the same age. Did you read the book Meat on a Hoof, and were you influenced by it? It was a book by about a guy named Gary Huff, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, absolutely. I read it, but I wasn't influenced at all. It didn't affect my life in the least. But yes, I read it. Yes, definitely, I read it. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely read it.
Gave me an insight to, the college sports and what a business it was.
Well, that was the start of it. I mean, college sports today is so much more sophisticated, even than it was during the personal fouls days. I cannot tell you what these colleges do now to make sure that their athletes stay eligible. It's just shocking. Shocking.
So it's just basically semi-pro.
Yes. Well, it's not even semi-pro. It's whatever it is. It's not college. It's not academics. I mean, that's the thing.
It's not amateur.
Well, they talk about student athletes, and they do that because that's their cover. There's nothing student athlete about any of it.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Great.
You're welcome.
Have a great week and stay well.
You too. Take care.
Bye. Bye, everybody out there. Keep on keeping on.